All right. So for tonight's meeting, I want to thank Doug, Graham, and Jay for being here. This is actually really exciting because I feel like for the first time in a really long time, we're going to get a head start on the midterm. And these three guys are going to help us get there. So today's conversation is going to be, who they, I guess, represent. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but, what their mission is and how we can get involved as the Lee Dems. And then, just looking forward to November. So with that said, let's start with Graham. And if it's okay with you guys, you can take questions as you're going, or it's your show. So once you get on, you're in control. So with that said, Graham, you've got the floor. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thanks for having me. Great to meet you all. And some familiar faces. Martin Castle, recognize you. Nice to see you here. So my name is Graham Ayres. I am a Deputy Political Director with NHDP, and I'm working in Stratford County. Right now, actually, I live in Dover, New Hampshire. So just right next door. Originally, I'm from New Hampshire. I'm from Grafton County, and working with local committees like yours, and just as a liaison between the state party and you all to make sure that you have all the resources you need to accomplish anything that you're trying to do, voter outreach, whether that's vote builder work or letters to the editor, and even just putting you in touch with the right people if you're trying to schedule speakers for your events, anything that we can do to make your committee successful in whatever endeavors you're going to do this year to get Democrats elected in Lee. So great to be with you, and I'll put my information in the chat box, and please reach out with anything we can help with.
Does anyone have any questions for Graham, or maybe what the party does, or anything specific?
Yeah, I'd like more specifics, and more specifics about what you think we can do.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm all about lists.
Yep. Well, really, it's it's the local committees, town committees that are set up the base for success all across the state, and we really saw that with the local elections. It looks like in Lee, you had a really exciting candidate get elected, Rebecca, for select board there. And even though traditionally those are nonpartisan elections, we were really heartened to see all over the state at local levels, even in deep red towns, reasonable Democratic and candidates being elected over the fringe Republicans. It's a really promising sign, and that work got done because of the engagement of local committees like yours. So going forward into November, like the real purpose is to ramp up all efforts and build on the foundation that you have right now. So trying to identify people that you can reach out to in Lee to get more involved and be volunteers down the line. And I know that Jay Bowie is on the call as well, and with Organize NH is going to be directing a lot of the direct voter contact efforts. So they'll be your contact for those efforts. But here at the state party, really helping out with any technological tools or letter to the editor communications plans, really just the building blocks and toolkits that you need to be successful and grow your committee.
Hey, Graham, with that in mind, I think looking at it from a state perspective, one thing that the committee members ask constantly, and I'm not good at providing this because I take it from a different perspective being in the House, but what would be wonderful if you can, report back to the team about this, but as having something, like talking points, or if somebody wants to do a letter of the editor, what should they be focusing on? What is the main messages for the party? The last time 2 years ago, a lot of it became from the Republican side was the family leave and how it was an income tax, and they kind of rallied behind that, and we lost some really great state reps based on, that kind of beating the drum messaging kind of thing. Is like, how can the party help with framing the message and getting that out to the committees?
Yeah, definitely. Messaging carries weight on a local level, but definitely there's proven messages at any level across the state that are effective. And at the something that we have up and running right now is a resources website for town chairs. I'm not sure if you've been on that yet, but there's some one-pagers on there for messaging, and I can get you the information to get all set up on that. And we try to keep that updated pretty regularly, but it depends on the issue. Issues change and public sentiment changes quickly, but our communications department also is running a letter to the editor program, and that's in our weekly grassroots newsletter. There's at the bottom a link to sign up for weekly sessions if you're planning on writing a letter to the editor to Foster's Daily or another paper over there. Come to one of those sessions and we can help you craft a message there as well.
How do we find out about that?
So that's in our grassroots newsletter, but I can also send along, Amanda, how about I email you afterwards with some links to some of these resources? Does that sound good?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I think there's a lot of things that are definitely targeted to town chairs that everyone should have access to. I mean, I do a good job of emailing everybody, but at the same time, I don't like to bombard everybody. So it's like, hey, I got something from Rights and Democracy. I've got something from Organize New Hampshire, Amplify New Hampshire, Dover Dems, like they all come at you. And I try not to just send everything out, but I think what comes up from the party is really important. So I would love to have more access to others. So it's not just me. So if anyone can sign up for that grassroots newsletter, which is actually very informative, I think that would be super helpful. So yeah, if you can, if that's okay to give other people access to that kind of stuff, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, certainly. Plug the grassroots newsletter. Actually, I write the grassroots newsletter, so happy to plug that. But go on our website, NHDP.com, and you can sign up for that newsletter. And that's really geared towards local committees and the work that you're doing, trying to set you up with resources like that letter to the editor program, that sort of stuff. But really happy if you send me an email to connect you with any kind of messaging resources that we have in the works right now.
All right, I have a couple questions for you, Graham.
Sure.
One is, I'm curious of why there's not, it's the 50th anniversary of the civil rights movement. And why is there not like a big movement in this state to look at women's issues, some of the other things that are going on, and making it almost a civil rights march somewhere? I know I have lots of friends that, are pro-choice and all that. But I just feel like talking about it and reading about it is really not working for me.
Yeah, certainly hear that 100%. And Women's History Month this month, a lot of organizations, I know Planned Parenthood NH has been doing a lot of visibility and stuff. And really the best place to find out about a lot of those events that are happening is on Twitter. I know that there's a conversion therapy bill in the House right now, and there's going to be a demonstration. It's not, endorsed by the state Democratic Party, but these are organizations, that share our values. And so there are events like that, visibility events at the State House. There's one tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the morning. But in the Seacoast, I know I've attended Black Lives Matter protests in Portsmouth and Ukraine demonstrations as well. So, but really the best place to find that stuff, I find, is on Twitter, to follow some of these organizations that deal with reproductive rights or any kind of right that or issue that you're interested in, and follow them and go to their events. And definitely.
I guess the other question for me is, sometimes I'm not even sure what Democrats stand for. And could use some help in understanding more about what they really stand for. besides beating Republicans or beating Free Staters. I mean, that's not some reason to stand up. Well, in some ways it is, but
Yeah, I don't think I have the.
Are we for legalization of marijuana in this state?
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, I think I saw you actually, Martin, on a platform call for Stratford County. And
Yes.
yeah, it was great that was the exact right step to be doing, because it's not one person that has the answer to that. It's a big tent party, and getting input from all the diverse people that make up our party is really so we can craft a platform and put out issues. But stay tuned for the platform that's going to be coming out before our state convention in May. And yeah, we'll have in language the issues that Democrats are going to run on this year. But thanks so much for your questions. Yeah.
Who
Anyone
gets
else?
to go to the state convention?
So there are delegates to state convention, and the town leadership. We have a list. I'm still getting up and running on a lot of this stuff and trying to commit it to memory, but I can get you a list of resources of delegates to the state convention.
Yeah, Deb, let's talk offline on that one.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for Graham?
You put me in the hot seat here in Lee, so it was a good warm up, but great to be here. Yep.
Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll give Graham a break and move on to Doug. I was gonna say, Doug, you and I have gone way back. I out of anyone on this call, I think I've known Doug the longest. So Doug is our contact for Senator Hassan, and I am excited for that. So if you want to unmute yourself, and then you can talk about obviously what you do for Maggie and what we can do for you, and vice versa, and then we can give you the hard questions too. Then.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for having me. My name is Doug Marino. I am Senator Hassan's regional political director for Rockingham, Stratford, Carroll, Belknap, and Hillsborough counties. And so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to work with all of you. I live in Rockingham County, but I spent a lot of time in Stratford County during my UNH days. And so I'm really excited to have the opportunity to work with you all again. I'm going to be pretty brief. I want to explain a little bit about what I do, because it's a little bit different than other campaign jobs. But one thing that I want to stress is that the way that we're going to win this election is the same way that Senator Hassan won in 2016, and that's through phone calls, knocking on doors, reaching the voters directly that we need to reach. I know that Jay is going to talk about that work tonight, and I really encourage you to get involved with the great work that the coordinator is doing. I want to talk a little bit about what I do and what I may be calling upon you to do in the future. I work on Senator Hassan's political team, so my role is a little bit different than sort of the field side. So I do a lot of work on trying to highlight Senator Hassan's record in a positive way through different channels. So to give you an example, I work with elected officials and town chairs to try and amplify our message. So for instance, something that I'll definitely be calling on you all to help out with are things like letters to the editor, something that Graham was talking about. We also have a letter to the editor program on the campaign, and we've been really trying to place letters that are focused on local issues that resonate with folks. So for instance, on some communities in the Seacoast, we talk about PFAS and water contamination, Senator Hassan's record on those issues. In other communities, we talk more about infrastructure, about broadband, closing the digital divide, and things of that nature. So I really encourage you to reach out to me. Actually, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and drop my contact info in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in that, because we can provide sample letters and talking points depending on the topic that you're interested in. So I definitely encourage you to to reach out if you're interested in that. Other ways that, I try to help highlight Senator Hassan's record is through social media. So for instance, recently the US Senate voted on a bill sponsored by Senator Hassan called the Women's Health Protection Act. It's a bill that would have codified Roe v. Wade at the federal level. It unfortunately did not pass because we didn't have the votes, but we decided the night that the vote took place to really try and have a strong social media push so that people knew that this is something that Senator Hassan is fighting for, a bill that she sponsors, and that this is something that we're working on. So I, work with activists, town chairs, elected officials to make sure that we're having a strong presence on Twitter and Facebook when things like that happen, so folks are aware of what Senator Hassan is doing. And then kind of another bucket of work that I'll be kind of in touch with you all about are events. So, most of our events have been virtual up until now. Hopefully, knock on wood, things are starting to turn around a little bit, but we're still being very cautious. But in any event, whether we're doing a virtual event or whether we do more in-person stuff down the road, I'll definitely be keeping you all in the loop about what we're doing, so that you can attend and help out and volunteer. We're going to be doing things like not just rallies but also press conferences, visibilities, things to really try and highlight the issues that our campaign is focused on. And so, those are some of the things that I kind of work on and that I'll be calling on you to help out with. And then the last thing I kind of want to touch on is what are some of the top issues that we're highlighting. So I already talked a little bit about reproductive choice. That's a big issue that we're talking about. Another big issue that we've been getting a very positive response on is public education. It's an issue that cuts across party lines, and we've seen that messaging be successful even in some red areas of the state. Catherine Rombo won her race in Bedford, in large part because she focused on choice as well as public education. And so those are the types of issues that we're really trying to focus in on and highlight the fact that Senator Hassan is a common sense leader, whereas her three Republican opponents want to dismantle public education, want to dismantle reproductive choice, and really want to move us backwards. And so that's the message that we're pushing. I really look forward to working with all of you. And as I said, please feel free to reach out anytime if you're interested in any of those projects, and I'll be in touch as things come up. And so that's kind of what I have tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have.
I guess I have a question for you, Doug. Not so much on the state level, but what's happening with I think how the Freedom for Voting Act. I know it got stuck, but I know people are still trying to move that forward.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have a lot of new updates. As I'm sure you know, the Senate voted a little while ago on changing the filibuster rules so that we can pass the Freedom to Vote Act by a majority vote. Senator Hassan supported that, and she voted yes to pass the bill by a majority vote. Unfortunately, we almost had the votes, but two members of the Democrat caucus did not support it. So since then, I haven't really seen a lot of movement in the Senate. It's an issue that we're still talking about a lot because we're seeing voting rights attacks here in New Hampshire and across the country. So it's something that we talk about a lot. But unfortunately, until Senators Manchin and Sinema decide to change their position, we're not in a great place as far as passing the legislation in the Senate, unfortunately. But hopefully that'll change.
Doug, when do you anticipate Senator Hassan kind of, I know she's already started campaigning, but like when do you plan on like really ramping up and maybe needing this team, or when do you anticipate, like what's your timeline?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an exact timeline, but I will say that generally we're going to be starting to ramp up now that municipals are over. Now that a lot of our supporters and town committees are kind of have moved past that municipals and are ready to look ahead to November. I think that we're going to see things start to ramp up. They are ramping up, but in terms of actually having like things like events and rallies. And I think we're going to start to see that more as we approach the spring and summer.
Well, it's also, I was thinking is a timeline for letters to the editor or knocking on doors or making phone calls, like those kind of things that you need volunteers for. That's what I'm curious. So we're not so spread thin. So like, is there anything we can do now, let's say, that would be super helpful for you all moving forward?
So I think Jay will talk a little bit about the field aspect, but I will say our letter to the editor program, that's happening right now. We had some good letters last week placed about reproductive choice, as well as taking on big oil and renewable energy. So if you have a topic that you're interested in, please shoot me an email or shoot me a text and say, hey, look, I'm really interested in this topic and talking about Senator Hassan's record on it, and we can provide talking points or a sample letter for folks who are more comfortable with that option. So that's happening now.
I just have a question. Is there any general research that says letters to the editor work? Because who reads newspapers anymore?
So this is why letters to the editor are only part of our strategy. People do read letters to the editor, but it's a very specific demographic of people who read it. Generally folks who are older voters do read letters to the editor, which here in New Hampshire does make up a sizable portion of the electorate. But as far as reaching like younger voters, and that's why we're focusing a lot on the social media push, working closely with the coordinated on door knocking and canvassing. And the coordinated also has a great campus program that we're working with them on. And so letters to the editor are effective for some constituencies, but it's not our only strategy because it does have its limits.
Yeah. Where's Maggie Hassan's central location? Like, where's her office?
Yeah, so our headquarters is
office.
So we share a headquarters with the Coordinate campaign in Concord. It's on Chanel Drive in Concord.
Okay.
So Doug, how can we help with the social media? Like, is it just forwarding?
Well,
how can we help with that?
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I'll be in touch about. So like going forward, if the Senate has like a big vote that we're trying to really like amplify, I'll be in touch with town chairs and about sort of what messages we're trying to push. So I'll be in touch as those opportunities come up.
Do you have, so obviously you put your contact info into the chat, but can people get on a mailing list and follow along? Like how can others beyond me, again, I'm just going to keep emphasizing we're a team, not just me. How can others get involved with Senator Hassan on a more daily, basis?
Yeah. So if you so the email address that my work email that I posted, if you shoot me an email with your email address, I can add you to our political email list, which it's not like the fundraising emails. You'll get updates from our political team, which provides some like a recap of the previous week, kind of what the week ahead looks like. So things like that.
I would recommend them. They're pretty informative. Yes.
Yeah. So if you're interested in that, please, feel free to shoot me an email with your email address, and I'd be happy to add you.
Any other questions for Doug? No? Awesome.
I have a quick question for Doug. So I know on the Facebook and Twitter, I follow Maggie, and I'll see a relatively positive yet innocuous post about something. Like it could be like, hey, good morning everybody, right? And then the trolls come out and they're like, why'd you have to murder nighttime, Maggie, and stuff like that. And I'm just like I understand, like, I guess you've got to be on social media, but how do you deal with that sort of thing? Because it's the same, like any positive thing you put out, anybody who dares to read the comments is going to get mud in their face.
Yeah, I mean, the sadly there isn't a whole lot we can do about it. Folks are gonna comment what they want to comment. What we found is that it hasn't had a noticeable effect on our social media engagement in terms of like we get negative feedback from folks who read the comments. But it is something that we're conscious of. And so unfortunately, I don't have a better answer other than we are conscious of it and we do monitor it and keep a close eye on it. But beyond that, there is no whole lot that can be done to regulate it, because she is a public figure, and so we don't like block people really or stuff like that, since she's a U.S. senator. So we're limited. We're a little bit limited.
Happens to everyone, Eric. Even Jeff and I have to deal with it. So I ignore them. Whatever. If I want to say good morning, that's just what it is.
I read the comments and I take it all in.
I'm sure you do, but comments hurt, so I don't read them. I just stay positive.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Doug? Awesome. Well, thank you, Doug, for this. This was really informative. I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
Awesome. Jay, yay. Thank you for joining. I feel like I've seen you in every meeting and haven't actually gotten a chance to introduce you to the Lee Dems. So I'm excited that you're here. Now you kind of know what I'm going to ask you. So if you can share what you do and your background, even though I already know it, but if you want to share it to everybody else, that would be awesome. And then obviously, how can we help, and how can you help us? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I think it's very funny that I'm on the hot seat, because for all staff hot seats, I'm the one who runs them. So it's like I'm being flipped here. So I promise I won't be too dry as I talk y'all's head off for a little bit. But I want to make sure this is engaging. Stop me if you have any questions through the process. But I'll start with introducing myself a little bit. My name's Jay. This is my third cycle working here. I started as an organizer for Elizabeth Warren. Then I managed John Morgan's re-election Senate District 23. That's Central Rockingham, Exeter, and a bunch of rural towns. And then now I'm back as a regional. I have Stratford and Rockingham counties, so I'm a bit stretched, but I always make sure that I touch every town I can, because I think local is how we get across the finish line in November. As of what we're doing right now, we have just started our canvassing program. We have been phone banking since October and texting since October. We actually had our first canvass last weekend in Dover. Had a few people go out in the rain, braving that. Said they had a great time. People ready to talk about Maggie. People were ready to talk about the coordinated and have great conversations on the doors, even though the weather was a little iffy. So we're going to be canvassing each weekend going forward. We're offering trainings for towns on shared values canvassing, moving away from traditional persuasion conversations and kind of trying to find more ways to build bridges to bring people in long term. Martin, kind of like what you were talking about with building out the party platform and making sure like when people go to vote for Maggie at the ballot, if they've never met Amanda, they know the platform and the shared values that Amanda and Maggie both live by as Democrats. So those have been trainings that we've been doing with town committees. It's been incredibly successful. We saw a great result with it for the town meeting elections. We partnered with 3 towns in specific, Brentwood, Exeter, and Hampton, and employed the shared values messaging, and they completely swept it. Their targeted races in Hampton, they won their select board race 2-1. It was a huge landslide, and it was just so great to see the results of all of that work come in and see that we had a few things going on. People were ready to phone bank right now. People were ready to canvass right now. And folks on the doors and phones were receptive to it, more so than in 2020, willing to talk about a lot of these issues going on. So that's kind of what our forecast is looking like for the next section. I'm happy to take any questions and talk. I'm just, I'm grateful to be back in New Hampshire. I've worked in New Hampshire, North Carolina, Florida, and California, and nowhere does it better than here. I'm from Maine originally, and it's like being in the Northeast, it's home, and I've come to love working in New Hampshire and had a great time with everyone I'm working with. So I'm excited for all of us to get to know each other this year. So what do you got?
Well, I'll start and say, well, you in particular are going to be the one who we rely on the most, probably, right? Like we're going to have the most conversation. So how do you want to stay engaged with us? How do we stay engaged with you? You know, what are some plans that you might have for the team beyond the canvassing and the phone banking? Is there anything else that, you know, you might need from the team that we haven't already discussed?
So I would definitely recommend, if you're even slightly interested, getting involved with Doug and Graham on letters to the editors. You know, as a local campaign manager in 2020, John Morgan and I put out, I want to say 24 letters to the editors, and we would go and we'd knock on people's doors and people would say, oh, I read your letter the other day in the, it was the Eagle Tribune. It was like right on the Mass border. People would go and they'd read it and John would show up at their door or he'd call them and they'd be like, oh, you're John Morgan. That was a cool thing you did. And, you know, it's the fact where we see the real results of the work. So I would definitely say getting involved with that. We're also making a big push right now for supporter housing. We have our first organizers coming on board on April 1st. I promise it's not a joke. They're actually coming here. And it's a really exciting time. So I've been going through and sending out email blasts to folks who have traditionally housed organizers in the past. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, it's a lot like having an exchange student. They go out, they do their own thing. They come back, they talk about the day, what's going on, get a little bit more of a peek inside the curtains of what sort of life all of us campaign staffers are living. It's a really great experience, would highly recommend it.
This is a really dumb question, but can you tell me again what organization you're with? I can't
Organize New
remember.
Hampshire, the coordinating.
Oh, there you go. Organize New Hampshire.
I
Okay.
knew I left something out of my intro. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'd be really interested in the shared value training piece.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
So we actually have a sign up on Mobilize and it's slated for March 30th. I can go through and I'll do a few things here. I will plug the canvassing that we have going on this week in next door Dover. We're meeting at Flight Coffee for anyone who wants to grab a nice little drink at 10 a.m. in the morning. We are also meeting at La Festa if you are more of a lunchtime canvasser and want to bring a slice of pizza with you. So there is the canvassing for this week. I will get the shared values training because those have been incredibly great, you know, really leaning into a lot of our personal values, what brings us to the party, what makes us Democrats, and sort of focusing on these common issues every day that tie us together. We've seen it be incredibly effective, and I'm so excited that we're living by the mantra of shared values this year. So give me just 1 second so I don't make a typo. There's the shared values training. And then I'll
So if we just go to mobilizeus.nhdp, then
Yes.
it should be there. Okay.
And it's that second link in the chat.
Okay. Great. And do we have to do that as the Lee Dems or can we just join
No,
it?
you're more than welcome to come on your own.
Oh, okay, good.
And then I send out a weekly blast too. Anyone is welcome to receive it. It just talks a little bit about what's going on. You know, like an example of what we included this week is we're hiring one paid fellow right now, and we're looking to bring on organizers. So just throwing out the job description to folks saying, feel free to circulate it. If you know any high schoolers, local college kids, people would be interested in a 15-hour a week, $15 position, pass it along. So I will throw my contact information in the chat, and anyone is, you know, feel free to reach out whenever. It's like what Amanda's saying. We really only get through November if we have a good relationship, and I am here to make sure that we have a strong showing early to make sure that when we get to November, when we get to October, if you have a question, you feel perfectly comfortable going to an organizer and having that strong foundation with them. And if it's something that I need to get tapped into, like, I'm more than happy to work with y'all however I can. Like, that's why I came back this year as a local campaign manager in 2020. I want to make sure we're putting a big emphasis on having a great relationship with our town committees. It is one of the most important foundational structures for me this year.
So Jay, I've got a question. So because we're in the midterm and traditionally we don't have as much support or I want to say money as we do in a regular presidential kind of campaign. what kind of resources do you need? Because I'm thinking we are always lacking in volunteers. So, I guess it's two questions, like what resources do you need that we could help you with, and vice versa. But then also, like, how do you, what is your, do you have a plan for the midterm? Like how do you recruit your volunteers, and how, like if they're not, like if I don't recruit them, how do you guys get them and bring them in, and how do we all work together towards the midterm? Because I know that's always been a challenge for us when it's like, hey, let's go canvas. It's like, I've got 2 people, or we burn out before October happens. So like, what's your plan to like keep going and I guess, and how can we help each other?
So a few things on that. Sustainability is definitely a core tenet of what I want to make sure our campaign embodies. I don't want to be burning anyone out, because none of us are any good if we're burned out in July and November comes around the corner. I want to make sure that we're respectful of boundaries. I want to make sure that we have a job to get done, but we do so in a way that is productive both to our mission goal in getting Maggie Hassan reelected, retaking the state house, Dems up and down the ballot, but also is productive towards your general health. In the past, these have been very intensive efforts, and it still will be this year, but I want to make sure that we're doing so in a way that takes the health of everyone into account. Looking at the greater plan, I think it's the fact where we know that going into a midterm year, historically, we've seen that we have to fight harder, as the party that controls the White House generally does. But we've also seen, as a lot of our weekly newsletters coming out from the NHDP have said, that we've been bucking national trends here. We won the mayor of Laconia seat, one of the reddest towns in the state. A Democrat is sitting in that chair. We completely swept the municipal elections on a huge scale last Tuesday. We're seeing great wins here, but it's about how do we take that momentum? How do we handle that baton pass, and we keep running with it? That's why we're getting started with canvassing so early, and that's why it's so important. I hope that answered that. That was kind of a rant.
That was my question. It's fine. But I guess that because we're starting so early, I mean, it always comes down to volunteers. Like, how are you utilizing the volunteers now versus what we're going to have to do in October and November? So like, are you planning, like, how are you recruiting? So by the time we get into October, you'll have a whole new group of people, I'm assuming. But like, what is your plan? Like, how are we starting? How are we how I don't know how to ask this. I just know that in the midterms, I'm always struggling to find volunteers. So, how are we able to take some people from Durham to help here, and can we help them, especially because of the House seat? I guess maybe that's where I should go. The House seat, because it's changed so dramatically, and now we have 4 towns. And I guess that brings up a whole different question about the candidates, but people in Dover are going to have to talk about representing Madbury, Durham, and Lee. So how are you going to get volunteers to do all 4 towns and to talk about it, and the ballot, down ballots and all of that? Like, how are you training volunteers? Let me start there.
So that's where I'll pivot back to our shared values messaging. I think in terms of how we're training our volunteers, I think there's a lot of power. Me personally, as a Quaker, I believe in faith of myself, in my reflection of my story and what's brought me here, and being able to go to the doors and tell someone why you have skin in the game. None of us are going to go out on a cold Saturday and knock doors in the rain unless we have something that brings us here. For me, I can tell you about what the opioid epidemic has done to my family, about losing my father, about losing his 3 siblings, his 2 parents, cousins. And it's the fact where people here in New Hampshire can relate to that. It's about the fact where we have stories that bring each of us to the table, that build deeper bridges than anything else can do. And I think it's important teaching each volunteer that we all have a story. And I think it's important that we're teaching each other how we tell them. That empowers ourselves, but empowers other people to get involved with the democratic process. And so I know that's kind of a non-answer in terms of how do we get people to bounce from town to town to town to town to town. but this is about building solidarity in the county. And it means a lot if someone from Lee shows up to knock in Dover, and it means a lot if someone from Rochester comes to knock in Barrington, and so on and so on. You know, all of my towns that I go to, the first thing I say is crosstown solidarity is what gets us across this. There's a reason why we have county Democratic parties, and if we help each other, we know that in 2018, we caught a glimpse of where our ceiling can be. And we know that if we get started early, we truly look out for each other, we get knocking early, we talk about everyone on the ticket, we carry state reps lit all the way up to Maggie Hassan, that it helps us with down ballot fall off, it helps us with cross ticket coordination in terms of making sure that people know what the Democrats stand for and giving us a brand. So I know those are a couple of different tangents tied into one, but you know, for me, it's about how do we teach each other how to uplift with our own messages, and how do we start to build that solidarity from town to town, and realizing that this is really all one big fight and we're all interconnected through it.
So how do you get the messaging? Is it coming from the party, or are you guys creating it just based on those shared values?
So, you know, we all have our central messaging that we follow. We have a communications team. They're working tirelessly day and day, making sure that they're crafting a message that they know can be successful in November. And I would definitely echo Graham in saying, please stay tuned for the platform updates coming in May on that.
Cool. Any other questions for- Oop,
Also,
Martin.
Local officials winning, more Democratic officials, local officials winning. Help me understand how that helps the state with the state.
Hang on, Martin.
We can't hear you, Martin.
You can't? Can you hear me now?
No. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
No?
better.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious of how the two select people in Lee, who are Democrats, or I think they're Democrats, help out with the Democratic Party on the state level.
So I see a few things here. I think that with a lot of these municipal elections, we saw candidates running on platforms like being pro-public schools, making sure that we are creating strong public infrastructures. And I think that when we as Democrats come to the door, I shouldn't say a table because we're really door knocking, that it helps us resonate there. It helps us resonate with a lot of these broadly popular select board positions that people vote for. You have Lori Warnock, who just won in Hampstead as a Democrat, as a select board member. Hampstead can be a ruby red town sometimes. And it's the fact where Lori ran on a broadly popular public agenda of making sure that we are strengthening our infrastructure. And so when we as Democrats come back in November and we run on public education, we run on building up our infrastructure, these are ideas that people have heard already in a nonpartisan sense that they approve of, and helps have that positive imaging with it. That's my opinion on the matter.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
I have
So I have a question for you, Amanda.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
So Jeff is not running again. So is there a list of people that the Democratic committee is looking to move forward to replace him? There's also, I've sat in on some Democratic meetings where there's a lot of conversation, are you running again? You know, and so that would mean for the town of Lee, we would need 2 people.
Yeah. So yes, we need 2 people. The Stratford County Dems are on it. Once we were done with Jay, that was actually the next part of this conversation, is that we need to bring some ideas to the Democratic Stratford County Dems. I actually have monthly calls with them to let them know what's happening in Lee, and if we have anyone to go for those floteral seats. Right now, I've just suggested to them that they reach out to those who are already in the seat, because Durham's going to have a lot that they're bringing to the ballot. And then So Janet Wall is not running again from Madbury. And then there's a couple people stepping up in Dover. So when we're Ward 4 now, and so Casey Connolly is moving, so he's stepping down, and he's been very open that he's not running again. And Sherry Frost, who's currently in the seat, she's not running again. Sherry and I started, actually Casey, Sherry, Jeff and I all started at the same time. So we've all served 3 terms. So that is a conversation that we need to have. One of my goals has always been with the Lee Dems is to have a succession plan. And we don't have one, even within the Lee Dems. Who's vice chair, who's going to be chair. Eric is our only consistent position because he's the CPA. So he will always be treasurer. He will never be able to leave that position. So we don't have to worry about a succession plan for him. Thank you, Eric. One last thing on my to-do list, but we're not good at that. And what I'm trying to work on, and have been for probably 6 years at this point, is to recruit new people to the Lee Dems. I just got a really good contact last week. So I'm going to reach out to him and see, because he's a younger group of people. He's actually president of the UNH Dems, who I have tried to be breaking. I've tried for years to break into that group, and now I finally know who the president is. They don't answer their DMs for tweets. They don't respond to anything. It's been really hard to get a hold of them. So I have a little bit more optimism than I've had in the past with trying to get some new people. But I think we all need to come together and kind of brainstorm on who we want to be representing us. Because right now there's no one from Lee who is stepping up to be part of that Flo Terrell seat. So I would say to all of you, keep your thinking caps on and let me know. And maybe you can even approach the person you might be thinking of. Jeff and I have also said that we would help anybody in the seat. Obviously, we know what we're doing. We've been there long enough. We've campaigned enough. I mean, my first term, no one's had a more expensive campaign than Joe and I. So, we're happy to help however we can. I've even offered to the party to go to different towns and help recruit and, kind of be like that mentor, but without the title, just being able to help somebody get acclimated to the House. So we've offered, there's stuff like behind the scenes that I don't tell the Lee Dems, right? So there are some things Jeff and I have offered to do a lot of stuff on the House level between we have the Victory Party. It's the House Victory Committee. And so we've reached out to them to let them know. So the party knows, they know, Jay knows. So there's the Stratford County Dems have known that Jeff and I aren't running for a while. So they've already started recruiting. So there is some action on it, but we need help with that. So just keep that in the back of your head.
So Amanda, have you considered infiltrating the Lee or the UNH Dems by posing as a college student?
I just had a birthday on Sunday, so I'm gonna say no, because I'm starting to get those lines that college kids don't have. So I'm gonna say I wouldn't fit in. So no.
Grad student.
Yeah.
Grad student.
Grad student. That too also passed. I got all my degrees a while ago. Yeah, I do know where they meet and I do know when they meet. So I have younger friends who I have told to go and crash their party and let me know who from the UNH Dems live in Lee. And no one's ever done, every time I ask, no one's ever done it. So no, it's fine. Hopefully the president will help us, and we'll because he's actually running for the House seat in Stratford, because Barrington
He also works as a fellow on the coordinated, so I talk to him every day.
Oh, I didn't know he was a fellow too. That's great. He didn't tell me that. So he's a busy kid. Good for him. Well, let him know. I'm going to reach out to him. He's on my to-do list for Thursday. So, awesome. Any other questions for Jay?
I just have a comment. I'm new to New Hampshire and to Lee a little over a year. And I've spent most of my time in terms of getting to know the politics and the way the town runs on the town. I don't know a lot about any of the candidates running for anything but the select board at this point. For me to get out and do a lot of promoting and supporting, I really need to understand the person. Do we ever have like a meet the candidates for people who are going to be going out, and so that the people who are trying to support the candidates actually have a good understanding of what they're supporting versus like towing that's a wrong way to put it, but towing the line, and following because people are Democrats, I'm gonna push for them without really understanding what they stand for. Does that ever happen? I think that would be wonderful. I don't know if they have time to do that.
We will definitely have chances to meet the candidates down the road. That's one of my favorite parts about working in New Hampshire, and what drew me here in the first place is I feel like I have met so many candidates and so many electeds here in New Hampshire that go out and make sure that they're putting in the work and the time, so that way then you can say, oh yeah, I went to this meet and greet candidate event and Amanda shook my hand and told me about her platform. Like, it's those conversations that are so important that it goes every year. And like, Amanda, I'm sure you can vouch, like it will be something that candidates go and do.
Well, and it's funny, you probably noticed we're all trying to be really careful when we talk about Senator Hassan, but we all just call her Maggie because we've all met her 1,000 times and you feel like you're besties with her, even though clearly, she probably makes everyone feel that way. But yeah, you'll get to meet everybody over and over again. And what the fun thing is, and Jay can actually speak to this, I know this happened a lot when the coordinated campaign to kind of like amp up the phone bankers or the canvassers before everyone get on the phone or go out, you'd have like a special guest come and welcome everybody. So Elizabeth Warren was there constantly. We got to meet her 1,000 times, which was awesome. But you get to, they had, who was it? The woman from, the actor with the red head, who I can't think of her name. But like, they'll have the most random people
Ashley
show up.
Judd.
What?
Ashley Judd.
No, it wasn't Ashley. The woman who was on oh my God. Grey's Anatomy. She played the OBGYN, and then she started, was it private practice? Anyway, they had that actor, and I can't think of her name, and I feel bad. But like they do have music people who show up, they'll have actors who show up, they'll have the candidates who show up.
Congressman Pappas just launched a phone bank 2 weeks ago.
Chris is always there. Again,
Yeah.
You don't want to just call him Chris, but like he's even done a fundraiser for us. So you will meet him. We actually had to do ours virtually when we had Chris last time, but he's always so supportive, and wherever he goes, he brings ice cream, obviously. So he's a wonderful person to have a fundraiser with. And he's just really nice guy anyway. But yeah, you'll meet everybody over and over and over again, to the point where like, oh my God, I don't want to see her again. Like, can we have another candidate? But they're all just so wonderful to give their time.
And I assume the governor's race is one that the group would get involved with?
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
And Tom threw his hat in the ring yesterday.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Kate Wallace is the actor you're thinking of.
Thank you, Kate. Yes. She went to Dover and she said hi to all of the canvassers. Our coordinated campaign office used to be where Chapel on Main is now in Dover, and she was there 2 years ago now or something like that. So yeah, thank you, Eric. She was lovely, super nice. Feel bad not knowing her name.
Well, I've got to jump out for an 8 o'clock. Thank you all, everyone, for having me. I'm going to put my info in the chat. Please feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. This blasted thing is never more than 5 minutes away from me, so give me a ring. If you don't get me at first, shoot me an email and I'll get right back to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We're all going to get off at 8 o'clock anyway, but thank you. I'll pass all the information along to the team. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Jay, and everyone have a wonderful night.
Oh, are we done?
We're done. It's 8 o'clock. Our guest speakers
Oh.
are leaving.
Oh, I just wanted to know what our next step is. What do we need to be doing? Me. I'm going to sign up for that training. Then what?
So I would find a House candidate. I'm going to put that personally on you, Deb. Find a House candidate. And then, yeah, sign up for Maggie's newsletter, the party's newsletter, the grassroots. That is very informative of what's happening. And then I would share social media posts from anybody that you might help elevate their platform. So if Maggie does something good, if Chris does something good, Chris Pappas, not Chris Nunu, share, that kind of information. If Tom does something good, share that. Yeah, you even say, hey, he announced yesterday, I'm supporting him because whatever. And Facebook, you can do that with very easily. Obviously, you can write the letters to the editor. People do read them. When I first ran, so it was 7 years ago, I had 4 in the Fosters. And and it's easier to get them published now than as we get closer to November. Yeah, they get harder to be placed. But people do read them. Exactly what Jay was saying, like I would show up canvassing and someone would be like, oh, I know all about you. And it was creepy, but it was exciting to know that those actually work. So if you're a good writer, that's always an option. Canvassing and phone banking, I didn't realize I had already started, but if you were interested in that, connect with Jay. Eventually more things will come. So I would ease into it because the question of being burnt out by October is a legitimate one. Us as a Lee Dems, we do not meet in July and August. So it's a good opportunity to start jumping in to campaigns at that point as well to help out. So maybe for the reminder email that goes out tomorrow, maybe tonight, but probably tomorrow, to, actually say like, call to action. Here are your next steps, 1, 2, 3, and just get everybody to sign up on the newsletters, to reach out to Doug and Jay, and just let them know that you all are here to help and volunteer.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they're great. Jay and Doug are great and wonderful organizers. So we're very lucky to have them.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
We should always end with a call to action. I guess we don't always do that. So that's a nice way of ending, Deb. Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you more about the state convention. That would be kind of exciting. We'll see. I don't know anything about it. So
yeah, no, I'll talk to you offline about that. We kind of technically have 2 spots that are available. So we can finagle something if you are interested in going. So
yeah, well, first you have to tell me what it is and then I'll decide if I'm interested. So
yeah, this will be the first in-person one in a while. I think the last 2 years it's been virtual. So
lovely.
They get a little rowdy.
The one with all the presidential candidates, that was in real life.
That one was in real life. Yeah.
Or was that more than 2 years ago?
Yeah, no, that was 3 years ago. Yeah,
Amazing.
They had them all on the stage in Portsmouth? It was Portsmouth High School, I think.
That was Manchester.
Oh, that's right. It was Manchester. Oh yeah, because you and Kintrid went. That's right. Yeah. So it's usually held either in Manchester or Bedford. And we sit in counties. And the lead delegation usually saves a row. We all have like little signs. And you just get to learn. You get to vote on the platform. You get to learn about what is happening with the Dems in general. Then you get the that's, you do the like the housekeeping stuff at the beginning, and then the end is the rah exciting part to get you all amped and ready to go. And yes, I can't wait to canvas. That's like their goal for the end. Yeah, they couldn't do that virtually very well. That one was hard. It was interesting. It was just hard. Well, Kelly was running. She did the video. So that one must have been 2 years. They must not have done one last year. I can't remember. Kelly was she was running against Ted. So that was 2 years ago. Anyway, they blur. Sorry. But yeah, we can talk about it if you want to go, or more details and stuff like that. They don't release any information about when and where until probably 2 weeks out. It's a little bit last minute. So I'm glad to at least know it's in May. That's a plus. And Chris, thanks for joining.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
I hope to see you at other meetings.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, thank you, and thank Jeff for the work you guys have done.
Yes.
So he is sick because he went to session last week. And he doesn't have COVID, he just has a cold. And it's funny because we're in session today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Today they went until 6:30. Tomorrow and Thursday they're going until 9. And so it's 9 to 9. And everyone is sick. The speaker is sick. Half the people who get up to speak, you can hear that they're like nasally, and like you could just tell that they've got the sore throat. And I'm just like, oh, why are we in the state house? Why are there no masks? Like, it's just so silly. So, and of course, the Dems lost every vote today. It was quite depressing. It's all good. So that's why we can't be in the minority next time. We need to be in the majority. It's much more fun in the majority.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. And let me know if you need anything else.
Yeah. Chris, you and I'll talk about things.
Sounds good.
Chris is my compatriot in doing fun things.
Good. We can get you to run. Both of you can run for the house.
No, not that. That doesn't sound like fun.
If you're in the majority, it is fun.
I'm just trying to figure out how New Hampshire works.
And that's the best way to learn, is get on a committee and learn how the state works. You learn so much sitting in session. It is better than any civics class you could possibly take.
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably. All right. Thanks.
All right, thanks.
See
Bye
y'all.
Bye-bye.